Good morning. This is my part two of my story, and we might get to like current life in this one. I have the baby next to me, so you might hear him. Hopefully, he'll let us get through some of it. He's smiling at me without me having to grab him, and he can be occupied. He's got a little helium balloon. That's like his new favorite toy to just watch it float around him. I got those for Valentine's Day for the kids and for my husband. So I think I'm gonna keep buying helium balloons because it's like the best toy for him. Anyway, so first I wanted to start, which I wanted to do last time, but I wasn't really prepared because I just kind of decided to do it. But last night I ran across a video of a channel on YouTube that I watch a lot. It's a church in, I think it's Arizona. And he has been going through the book of Proverbs for like as long as I've been watching him, which is like years now, 2 or 3 at least. So he was on Proverbs chapter 16, verse 4. And that says, "The Lord has made everything for his purpose, even the wicked for the day of disaster." It was a super long video, but I felt that it was perfect timing in a lot of ways. For my story, for one, obviously, but also for the way of the world right now. It was a reminder that God will use evil and wickedness as part of his plan to glorify himself. So he knows everything that's going to happen. He's so sovereign. He knows what's going to happen. He has a plan for it all, even for the evil, even for the wicked. And I guess for my story, that resonated because I did a lot of evil. I did a lot of wicked. And like I said in the last video, I do think it was all for a purpose. It was all to bring me to him. And I have a story now that where I came to Christ. So all that stuff that I did, and being able to see him through all of it, through my entire life, like he uses all that terrible stuff I did. He uses that for his own plan. And another point to the video was ultimately there is no chaos in the world because he is in charge and he has a plan for everything. So that's really challenging for us as humans because the world seems really chaotic. But if there's a plan and he knows everything that's going to happen, nothing is out of place. Everything in the world is aligned the way that it's supposed to. And I know that's hard to wrap your mind around. So another verse in that chapter that he spoke on was verse 9. "A man's heart plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps." So that goes along with it. So we have our plans, but ultimately the Lord is in control. So he's going to guide us, even the evil, in a way that's going to fit his plan and glorify him. So I wanted to start off with that, with a little Bible verse. Like I said, I wanted to do that last time, but I literally just hopped on and I had no planning time. So I think we ended around the time on the last video that I was about 7 months pregnant and not ready. I wasn't really ready, but I could not stay on the street anymore. So I was about to go into rehab. But I wanted to tell the story about my car because that was an interesting piece of the story. And again, I didn't know it was God until much, much later, years later. He's not happy with that balloon right now. See how much I can do this before I have to grab him. So the car story is really interesting to me. It may seem like nothing to other people, but I don't know. I think it was God. So when I was out there on the street and I didn't have my car, I guess that's now. Okay, he can totally see himself, so I don't know how this is gonna go. But okay, so the car. I did not have my car, and I had given that to the dealer, and I think I was without the car for maybe, it seemed so much longer while I was out there, but probably about a month and a half, give or take. So when I really got to my end physically, where I just I couldn't walk around all day. I would wake up in pain. I mean, I was pregnant, carrying weight, sore, and my body just could not do much more. So I had kept just saying to myself, it wasn't a prayer. I don't think I was praying at that time, probably. But I was saying to myself that once I got my car back, I would go to rehab. I just wanted my car back. I was so ashamed that I had given it to a stranger. My grandpa had bought me that car. My grandpa is an amazing person, and he helped me with a lot of vehicles in my lifetime. So this was like one of the nicest that he did buy for me, and he bought it for me in one of those small times that I was sober, because my car previous to that, it was like a fender bender, but my car got so much damage. The other car didn't, but I couldn't even open my driver's side door. So anyway, he got me a nice car, and it was pretty new. And so I was ashamed that I had just given it away, and I couldn't imagine like disappointing my grandpa like that. It was one thing, and this sounds terrible, it's one thing to disappoint your parents, but because at the time you feel like you have reason to like be mad at my parents, and they did this and this and this to me, and but grandpa was like so innocent in my eyes that it was shameful. But so anyway, I kept saying to myself that I would get help, but I wanted my car back. And I had all these plans to get it back. So I had the spare key still on me. I gave him a set of keys, but I had some spare keys. I had planned, I knew where he parked it and where I don't think he lived at this place, but he would be there a lot at this home. So my car was always parked out front. And I was going to just run up on the car with my spare key and grab it and take off while he was in that house one day or something. I had so many plans. And now that I think of it, I don't think I had my spare keys. I actually remember reaching out to, I think my dad had my spare keys. Ultimately that was the plan. Like, I wanted to get my car back. I knew he wasn't going to give it back willingly. Even though when I gave it to him, I thought that he would, but I never asked him. But eventually, yeah, I wasn't getting that car back. I knew that. So yeah, I did not have the spare keys, but I had asked my dad, who I think is the one who had it, maybe my mom. And I didn't mention this in the last video, but my family had at that point pretty much written me off. I had very little contact with them. I really didn't even have a phone. We had like a little track flip phone that you had to put minutes on, and we barely ever had minutes. But they were pretty much done with my nonsense, and they had done everything they could to try to help me, and I was not willing. So, I don't blame them, but it was probably too painful to keep in contact like that and keep trying. Every once in a while they'd hear from me, and that was one of them. I need my keys. I'm trying to get my car. The one thing, I didn't get my keys. The one thing my dad ended up doing for me when I did finally want to get help was he did call me an Uber to get me to the rehab. I do remember that, because I had no way to get there. I had no way to get there. I guess I could have ridden the bus, but to be honest, I don't know how to ride the bus. I did it a couple times, but anyway, he did do that for me. But the car story. So I said for weeks, I am done. I need to get my car and then I will go to rehab. I don't want to do this anymore, but I have to have my car back. I cannot come out of this without that car. It was so important to me. So I was determined to get that car back, and I was going to stay out there until I did. So there was one night, me and my other son's dad, we were out there together, and the guy who had my car would not answer his phone. We somebody else answered his phone and made us meet this random person to again buy drugs because our normal guy wasn't answering the guy I gave my car to. We ended up walking a lot further than we normally would, and we passed you could tell there had been a car accident. There was glass shattered all over the street. There wasn't a car, but there was like metal pieces, and there was an accident. You could see that. And there was this coffee mug, a Contigo or whatever they're called, coffee mug, on the road, right, with all the glass and all that. And my son's dad was like, "Hey, that looks like your coffee mug, the one I had in the past." Like, I obviously I didn't have much stuff with me anymore, but I looked at it and I was like, "Yeah, that is the same one I had." And I think it was the next day I found out that that was my coffee mug. It was from my car. And that was my car's glass and metal pieces laying all over the ground. So ultimately, I think God knew I would never get that car back. And if that is how, if that was my reason for staying out on the streets, then he was just going to take that reason away from me. And he did. So, I mean, that same day, I then got in contact with that rehab. Once I found out the car was gone, I was like, there's nothing that I'm waiting for anymore. And I went and saw the rehab coordinator person, and being pregnant, they had, in my city, my state, I guess, they had a bed available right away. And not many rehabs, at least where I am, they don't even take pregnant women. I think there's like 2 or 3 within the city that even takes pregnant women, but this one did, and this one holds space available for pregnant women, which is a blessing because I needed to get in right away. There are plenty of people who aren't pregnant who have to wait a really long time to get into a state facility. Private, maybe not so much, but private's really expensive. This was a state-run facility. So I got in the very next day. I think it was probably 2 days after the car wreck. So anyway, the guy wrecked my car, and as far as I knew, he was in prison after that for quite some time. Don't know if he got hurt. I know he's alive now. But yeah, my car was gone. My reason to stay out there was gone. God knew that, and he got rid of that car. There was no other anything keeping me there. I guess I could have, by my own free will, I could have, but I just couldn't. And I think God knew that. I couldn't do it anymore. I physically could not do it. So my son's father also ended up going to rehab that same day. So we actually share the same sobriety date of March 15th. So going into rehab, I want to say that was like a 28-day inpatient stay. I know. And at this time, being pregnant, I mean, I've always heard that you do want to be medicated on like Suboxone or methadone because going through withdrawal symptoms and being pregnant can be really dangerous for the baby. So I was on Suboxone. So getting clean was a little bit easier this time. Which eventually I wasn't on that long, so I'll get to that when that time comes. But that's how I started off. And so it was inpatient, and then they also had a pregnant and postpartum sober living home. My parents still really they didn't trust me, and I don't blame them. I was not trustworthy. I had tried this so many times. I still wasn't. They didn't want me to see my daughter. They didn't want me to be in and out of her life. So it was kind of just me, myself, and I. I remember needing like shampoo and a hairbrush and things like that, and I asked my mom for it, and she did do it. But I don't think she was very happy about it. She I don't think she really not that she didn't want to help me, but she was just fed up. And I get it. Here I am asking for more stuff. And I had already taken so much from them. Their energy, their time, money, everything. Anyway, she did do it, but I don't think she was happy. So, but really my point to that is I was on my own for the most part. I had contact with my family, but it wasn't great contact. We weren't in a good place in our relationship. So, I had to figure it out. They threw me out of the nest. Like, you created this problem, like, you have to figure it out. Because I forget how old I was, but 26, 27, it's time to be an adult. So I went to sober living. I ended up having my son, Liam, and he was healthy. He didn't even have any withdrawal symptoms because I was just on Suboxone at that point. But God really protected him in there. I mean, there was nothing physically wrong with him. I do think some of the trauma that he endured just in the womb, and even when he was first born, I was 2 months clean, so I wasn't exactly the most mentally healthy myself, not for a while. So I do think he has struggled with some emotional things just due to my use, due to the chaos during pregnancy, and probably some chaos even when he was first born. But other than that, I mean, that's so little compared to what could have happened. He was not. I wasn't a NICU baby. He was healthy physically, and I owe all that to God. I mean, he protected that child. There's just no way. Again, there's just no way that I think him or I should have made it through alive. Truly. So, hey. So, yeah, that's when I guess the good life really started happening, and I got my life in order. It took a really long time. Here's another story of where I think God just kept poking at me and sending me people. And I lived after sober living, and me and his dad we did not end up staying together very shortly after my son was born. I first transitioned into an apartment, a very, very cheap one in a really, really rough neighborhood. I mean, I would hear gunshots at night. It was infested with things. It was so bad. But right across the street, there was this girl who I believe was recovering off of a different drug of choice. But I love cats. She had a bunch of kittens over at her house, and she saw me and invited me to come over. I don't think I ever even went inside her house. It was just outside. We would sit on her porch, and she would tell me about Jesus, and she would invite me to her church. And in such a bad, rough neighborhood that I was in, like, this light was just right across the street. And I think God placed me there for a reason. There's a couple times I have run into that girl since then. And the last time I was saved, and I was like, you have no idea how amazing it was to know that God was using you back then. And I had no idea. And like, now I'm saved. Now we get to meet each other in heaven, and she thinks that's so cool. Eventually, I did get out of that bad neighborhood. My mom helped me get back to the county, closer to the family, and I had to start living my life again, get a job again. Oh my goodness. We might not last here. Now I've forgotten where I left off, really. But does anybody else... Okay, this is the first time I've breastfed exclusively, and as long as this. He is getting so much more active now that feeding is so hard because he's so distracted, and it's really frustrating. And also, this kid does not like to nap very long. He's just on the floor because he didn't want to feed. He just kept messing around. So, I've never had to... Breastfeeding is like a whole other experience. I never knew how hard it was, and I never knew how much energy it takes. Anyway, he also doesn't nap very well, which I don't want to complain too much because he's the best sleeper I've ever had. He like does not cry in the middle of the night. He moves around and squirms until I feed him. But he's been the best sleeper, but not the best napper. So I guess I'll take the nighttime sleep though. So it's fine. Anyway, I think I was getting my life together. I moved back to the county with the help with my mom. I did reconnect with my daughter, and it was me and my oldest son Liam full-time together. Pretty much full-time. I mean, his dad had him maybe weekends. I know that's what we do now, but I can't really remember back then. But his dad was in his life. His dad stayed sober too, and I, had a relatively normal life. I did get another car, which meant I got a job. Liam went into daycare, and I did pretty good. About the first year of my sobriety, since I spent some of it in the sober living home and then some of it in the really bad apartment and then this new place, I had not done anything outside of like the rehab. I didn't do AA or anything like that up until a year. But at a year, we have HA, Heroin Anonymous, which is basically the same as AA. We work out of the same big book, but it's for heroin addicts. So when I was a year clean, I had reached out to a friend who I went to rehab with, like the first set of rehab, and she had managed to stay clean. So, and I knew she did meetings, but anyway, I wanted my year coin, my year chip. I had zero intention of going back. I don't know why. I really just had no desire, but I wanted to get my chip. So he's just not gonna let me, because I know he's tired, but he won't take a nap. Goodness gravy. I don't know. He's still down there. He'll probably cry in a second. He laughed at me. I know. Okay. So I went to the one meeting and I got my chip for being sober a year. And the friend I had went with made sure that she introduced me to another lady. another lady in the program. Look at yourself. Look how cute you are. Look how cute you are. You are so cute. She made sure I was introduced to somebody. If you know anything about AA or those programs, people sponsor each other, go through the steps with each other. So she introduced me to my first sponsor. So I did end up coming back. And I really liked my first sponsor. Was amazing. She would meet with me, I think, weekly with baby Liam at Panera Bread. And she was so much younger than me. She actually got sober when she was like, I don't know, some really young, like 16, maybe 17. And I don't know how old she was at that time, but she was younger than me, but she was awesome. And I spent the next, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years in the program. I sponsored people myself. I went through all the steps. I did all the things, and I had a relationship with my higher power. And I am not going to shame anybody who does that type of program. When I did come to Christ, my feelings about the program changed, and I did not continue going. And that's where I guess I'll get into now. Well, I guess I have to first get into how I even came to Christ. So I had been working at a law firm for a really long time, a couple years, 3 years, and it was a really good job for me coming out of addiction, and it was really strict, and it kept me accountable for sure. And then I ended up loving it, though. I had good friends there who I still talk to today, but I don't know what happened. One day I stopped at my mom's house before I had to go into work. I think I had to go to the bathroom, and she was on my way. And our cleaning lady, my family had the same cleaning lady for like since I was born, basically. So she was there, and I don't know why, but I guess I was tired of the office job. I just wanted something different. I wanted to get off my butt, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was like, hey, how did you start your business, and can you help me? It was so random that she was there that day, and that's what I asked her, and that's what I had in mind. But within like 2 or 3 weeks, I had put my 2-week notice in, and I was going to start my own cleaning business. I stepped out in total faith because I didn't have a real plan. I really just jumped into it, and I did have a part-time job at like you just want everybody to see you. Look at you. Look at how cute you are. Oh, so cute. Don't cry. See, he needs to sleep. He won't sleep unless I'm holding him. But I can't do that. And he's not feeding well. We're just in this cycle of does not work well. Okay, I got him a bottle of breast milk, and that should keep him quiet. Sometimes we have to do this because that's another story for another time. But my breastfeeding journey, like I said, it was so hard. Didn't quite go as planned in the beginning, and it's taken a lot of work. And sometimes we still supplement with donations and stuff because I think he's just a really hungry man. I don't know. Anyway, so I started my own cleaning business, which was awesome because I made more money doing that than any job that I had ever had before. And I liked it because it was flexible too. I very quickly did not need that part-time job, and I was able to get enough clients to do it full-time. I mean, it wasn't 40 hours a week, which was awesome. And again, making more money than I ever had. It was then that God started putting all kinds of different believers in my life. So many of my clients were believers. It just seemed like they were just everywhere. And maybe I only noticed it because I did get saved. And maybe they've been around me all the time and I just never cared or paid any attention. I don't know. But they seem to be everywhere. And this one in particular was a weekly house cleaning, and it was every Friday. And she was one of my original clients. I was still I was building myself up at that point, but she is who brought me to Christ, basically. I started cleaning for her. And I just noticed something very different about her and her family, her children especially. I knew they were Christians because they had Christian stuff everywhere. Bibles, crosses. You'd open up her kitchen cabinets and there was verses, and it wasn't on the outside, but I was cleaning the tops of the cabinets, and I would open them and there was just the paperwork all over of different things that would lead me to believe that they were Christian. And I'm sure she told me anyway, and her kids went to Christian school, whatever. That all those things in her house really don't matter, not if she wasn't representing Christ. And that was the first person I had ever met myself that really represented Christ. It was just different. I saw this light, and I saw her and how she was so calm, and she was so I don't even know how to explain it. She was just different than anybody I had ever met. And so I started asking her questions about her faith, and some hard questions to kind of trip her up. And maybe it wasn't even on purpose, but I didn't fully believe. I had tried to read the Bible and I didn't get much further than Genesis 1 because it didn't make sense to me. I still had the scales over my eyes. God had not opened my eyes. It wasn't time to be revealed. But she had just something. Her answers to my really hard questions were you couldn't really argue them. They were so, and I had met so many Christians before where you would ask those same hard questions and they didn't really have answers for me, and they just said you have to have faith. And while that answer isn't awful, sometimes you just do have to have faith because you can't understand everything in the Bible. But and she'll tell you now that when I was asking those questions, the Holy Spirit was guiding her the whole time, giving her the answers. But God knew what He was doing. He knew. The whole cleaning business was to get me to her because that was going to be the person that introduced me to Him. I am certain of it. And after that, the flood, it just, all the gates opened up, and all these people around me, all of a sudden, I noticed believers everywhere. And again, I don't know if God was just placing me around these people. They were new people, but maybe those types of people have been around me my whole life. I don't know, but all of a sudden I saw it and my eyes were open, and very, very quickly, I know not everybody experiences this, but I had a radical change, a radical salvation. It was like a light switch went off, and I was in a relationship at that time with somebody in AA or HA, and I had lived with that person, and I was living a worldly lifestyle. I had a decent life, and I was working my steps, and I was staying sober, and I was doing all the things, and we had bought a house together, and from the outside it looked like a good life, but from the inside I was Now that I am saved now, things were still chaotic in my life, in my heart. There's little bald spots. I guess I'll try to get done here soon. Basically, my whole point, he's gonna burp, and I hope he doesn't throw up all over me on camera. That'll be funny. Going through HA, the program, I did have my higher power, and I would pray to that higher power, but my heart was still stone. I was still broken. It's silly to me now. It wasn't enough. My higher power was not enough. Doing the steps was not enough. And actually, there was a much simpler solution, and that was just Jesus. I mean, it's really as simple as that. I didn't need anything else. I would pray, right, before I was saved, but who was I actually praying to? I didn't know God. So how could I ever be healed without knowing who I'm even talking to? And it is very clear who he is. He made there's a whole book about it. If you don't know God, it tells you who he is. So yeah, I had my higher power, but I didn't know who he was. And I was probably, he heard me, obviously, but when I was praying, but, excuse you, I might as well just been talking to myself, giving myself a pep talk. You need to know who Christ is and who he says he is, and it is written. There should be no confusion. And I know there are parts in the Bible that, there are parts in the Bible that are hard to understand. I guess I hate the excuse of the Bible is not clear on certain things and certain issues, and I think the scales are not falling off of some people's eyes, because when my eyes were open, that Bible made sense. I have read it fully once. I am about halfway through for my second time. It's not the easiest to read. And I also listen to a lot of different pastors and some other people I've found online that help me understand it. But it does say who he is. And it does say, there is his law and there are his commandments. And we try to distort them and make them our own. And now I'm getting into it. I didn't plan on this, but we love the God who is full of mercy and love, and that's it. But God also has wrath, and that wrath will come one day. And again, I didn't mean to get into all of this, but it is really frustrating that a lot of people claim they have a relationship or claim to know God. They've never even opened that Bible. They've only listened to other people. They've never let Holy Spirit in so they could hear from Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit will guide you. The Bible will guide you. We make it more complicated than what it really is. And a lot of people continue to live the life they want to live because, God loves me. It's okay. And he does. He does love you. And he loves us. But, and it's not about works. It's kind of hard to balance the grace and works. But if you are changed and touched by the Lord, you want to do the things that he wants you to do because you love him. You should change. Jesus ate with sinners. He didn't sin with them. He says, go and sin no more. It's just not that complicated. So, anyway, I didn't mean to get into all that. Basically, I'll stop it here that meeting my one client, she brought me to Christ, held my hand, got me there. That was all God's plan. We're still great friends and talk all the time. I don't clean for her anymore. She brought me to the church I'm at, and I never left that church. And yeah, that is the main parts of my story. Again, so many details I didn't get into. I did not stay with the person from AA. It was made very clear to me that, again, the light turned on in my heart, and he was not a believer, and I could not stay. It ended very quickly. I'll have to tell the story about the house that I bought very quickly after that relationship ended. I bought it only because the grace of God, he gave it to me. He made this house available because at that time the market was awful, and I had a neighbor tell me one time that I wasn't even the highest offer on this home. But I remember seeing this home online and sharing it with my mom because I was looking. And I said, this is my home. And 2 weeks later, I was here. In this time, I got married shortly after. That's a whole nother story. So I guess there's part 3, but it gets to a happier note. Now that I've been saved, that part of the story, yeah, everything in my life changed. Everything, night and day. I couldn't do AA anymore. I couldn't stay in that relationship. I couldn't watch certain movies or shows anymore. The music I listened to changed, and that's what I mean. I had a radical change completely overnight, and it was amazing. And now this is my first baby that will know the Lord, the real God, from the time he's born, at least grow up in that household. My other two, that obviously didn't happen until later, which has been amazing. But I'm excited to see what it will be like for this baby to know God from the very start, and see what his life has planned for him too. But I guess I'm going to try to get this one to nap. I don't know how it's going to work, but we're going to try. And I guess part 3 will be about being saved and all the things that have happened since then. It's not all great things. If anything, it gets a little bit harder when you're a believer, but also so many blessings and so many good things. So yeah, I hope to be on again soon for part 3 into my salvation.